Molly.
And I'm Camden.
And this is the South Marshall Minute.
Congratulations to the softball team. They are the middle school state champions.
Today for lunch, we're having chicken with Texas toast and with gravy.
Tomorrow for breakfast is cinnamon rolls.
Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's Miss Lana's birthday today.
Make sure you go to Miss Chambers' room for your birthday sticker. Now to Brooklyn with the weather.
By the time you're watching this, it'll be 65 degrees and sunny, and by the time we get out of school, it'll be 69 degrees and sunny. Now back to Molly and Camden with the...
This Friday is our 6 weeks reward. See you at the flagpole on September 28th at 7:30 a.m.
It's Hispanic Heritage Month. Each day we're going to watch a video about a Spanish-speaking country.
Today is Chile.
Good morning, everyone. We're here for one more week of history and culture to honor Hispanic Heritage Month. We'll continue our South American journey to Chile. Chile is settled along the western coast of South America between the Pacific Ocean and the Andes Mountains and is the most southern country in the world. In fact, Chile lays claim to parts of Antarctica. This country is home to so many landscapes that I'm dedicating a little bit more time to them. The first is Elqui Valley, which sits just outside of Chile's second oldest city, La Serena. Elqui Valley is surrounded by the Andes Mountains, which are pretty dry, but as you can see, the valley is very lush. Next, we have El Maipo Ravine, also in the Andes Mountains. This ravine is part of the Maipo River and a popular destination for people who live in Santiago. Conguillo National Park is one of the last places on Earth that still looks as it did when the dinosaurs roamed. The mountains you see in this picture is actually a volcano, and it last erupted in 2009. That was only 13 years ago. Last is Caleta Condor Beach. Even though Chile's coastline is long, it doesn't always have traditional beaches. You can visit this beach, but you'll either have to camp or stay with a family who lives there because there are no hotels or public places to stay. One of the most famous landmarks in Chile is the Atacama Desert, which it shares with Argentina. In fact, some of this beautiful land is often disputed by the two countries. These amazing pictures give us an idea of the vastly different landscapes that the desert alone has to offer. Cape Horn is not part of the Atacama Desert, but I wanted to include it because it is the most southern tip of the continent of South America and it belongs to Chile. For many of these countries, I had to do some research, and the most memorable lesson that I learned during this project is that Chile is made up of a bunch of archipelago islands along its western coast. I'd always heard of Easter Island or Rapa Nui and the Galapagos, but I hadn't heard of its other islands. Rapa Nui is not part of any archipelago, but rather sits in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. We'll talk more about why Easter Island is famous in a bit. Here we have Chiloé Island, which houses the protected temperate rainforest you see here. Then we have the Chonos Islands, which were named after the Chono people who roam there. Last, we have Madre de Dios, or Mother of God. This archipelago is super mountainous and illustrates that even though Chile has a ton of coastline, it doesn't have a ton of beaches. Chile only has two large cities. The first and main one is the capital, Santiago. Santiago is the oldest city in Chile and also the largest. It is home to over 4 million people, but most cities in the country have about 200,000 inhabitants. Valparaiso is the next most important city, and it lies on the coast. Notice the colorful buildings on the hill in comparison to Santiago. La Serena isn't a large city, but I wanted to include it because it is the second oldest city in Chile. In terms of architecture, I wanted to show you all a mix. Here is a typical home in Valparaiso versus a luxury home in the suburbs of Santiago. We also have a country home in Molina. However, the most important architectural site is Easter Island. It is here that we see the moai heads carved from stone. The people who carved these were sea explorers from Polynesia or Tahiti. Think about the movie Moana. She had to reteach her tribe how to sail based on the knowledge from her ancestors. It would have been these people that sailed from other islands in the Pacific to Rapa Nui to build a civilization. We still don't know exactly what these statues were for, but did you know that they aren't just heads? They are whole bodies. And trust me when I say that I could have spent this entire presentation on just these guys. Chile is a mixture of many different indigenous cultures, just like the other countries we've seen. However, the main ones are the Inca and the Mapuche. While the Inca have long since deceased, the Mapuche are still alive today and have a hand in Chilean policies such as land protection and other environmental efforts. Of course, we also owe it to Spain for bringing Spanish culture and language. Traditional Chilean clothing includes the woven poncho seen on the man in the picture. The lady's dress is called the ausa or the cueca dress. Traditional fashion is based on the rural peoples of the nation. We also see a Mapuche woman in traditional dress. They are also famous for their jewelry. In terms of modern clothing, a popular store in Santiago sells t shirts like you might find here in the US. For women, we see these famous singers wearing outfits also similar to what you might see here. Traditional Chilean music is very difficult to pin down due to the fact that so many of its indigenous peoples were nomadic. However, we can attribute sounds most directly to the Mapuche, who used instruments similar to what we have today, like a double-headed drum, flutes, and trumpet-like instruments. Observers noticed that their music was not for singing or dance, but rather for worshiping their gods, and while Christianity influenced many of their practices later, the ancient songs they used to sing are still passed down to their children to this day. Let's listen to a Mapuche song. Victor Jara is arguably Chile's most famous singer, also known for his guitar playing, which you heard at the beginning of this presentation. But today's popular singers include Mon Laferte at the top and Francisca Valenzuela. They both play a big role in today's Chilean pop music scene as well as on social media. You saw their pictures on the fashion slide. One art form that comes from Chile is ceramics. Here you can see an ancient piece of pottery and a work from Pablo Neruda, who has been working to bring ceramics to the forefront since the 1970s. Another art form in Chile is Mapuche textiles. These fabrics are made from geometric patterns that communicate feelings and connections with the spiritual world. Arguably, Chile's most influential author is Pablo Neruda, a poet who also served in the Chilean government and later as a rebel who protested against the dictatorship of Augusto Pinochet, who ruled until 1990. Neruda is known not just for his political activism, but for his indescribable poetry about nature, love, and the human connection. Isabel Allende is still alive and writing to this day. She's written a myriad of novels detailing everyday life in Chile under Pinochet's dictatorship, but also in the everyday lives of women. She is also known for writing in the style of magical realism, which blends real life with a touch of magic. One of my favorite dishes from Chile is the empanada. Made a bunch of different ways, this one is a meat pastry filled with ground beef with plenty of onions. Traditionally, you put an olive on one end and a piece of hard-boiled egg on the other. Arrollado huaso is a pork roll that signifies the coming of winter. It is a food that is traditionally served amongst neighbors and family. Caldillo de congrio is eel soup that comes from La Isla Negra or Black Island. This is where Pablo Neruda lived and dined on the soup. He loved it so much that he wrote an entire poem about it. Thanks for joining me in Chile. Tomorrow we'll head to neighboring Argentina.
En papel de la sufrida.
Have a magical Monday.